Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Memorial Day, Monday, May 25th. Welcome to this edition of Quarantining with Pastor Michelle. I'm Pastor Michelle, who just woke up and wanted to go ahead and get this video done. I do look forward to these videos. It's something I like doing, and so it's been something that has been helping me get through this pandemic, and so I'm glad I can do it. And so I hope all of you have something that is helping you get through these days, these unknown days. And so without further ado, let's start with a little bit of reflection from this book, which I do a lot of inspiration from this book. My mother's physical death taught me that I didn't come here to master devastating situations, circumstances, changes, losses, or even my own feelings. I came here to experience them. I came here for soul lessons and spirit teachings so that I could carry on in this wonderful spiritual journey we are all on, this teaching way, this blessing way, so that in the end I can, like my mother has done, return to the beauty that I was when I first arrived here. And here's a conversation. What is the point of prayer and meditation? The answer: to bring you closer to the great mystery. So I can understand it? No, so you can participate in it. I grew up spiritually after that. It seems to me the act of being spiritual is simply the act of allowing myself to feel my spirit move. It's not a huge ideological or theological process. It's just opening myself to living and allowing myself to absorb and be absorbed at the same time. That means I can find creator in a blues run, a dance sequence, a conversation, a baby's laugh, the sound of the wind in the trees, and the immaculate silence of an empty room in the stillness of dawn. Like now, here on the 18th floor of a hotel with the sky a seeming foot away from my face. And so, my friends, let's start with the moment of just prayer. Our Father and Mother who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. And let's take a deep breath, breathe in all the good, and breathe out all the bad. And so let's start with some good news. Let's hear one good news story. So imagine life. This is from CNN. Imagine life without a grocery store. I shudder at the thought. Now imagine that you don't have a grocery store because you live on a remote island in Alaska where it's a 14-hour round trip to the mainland. While the locale sounds stunning, I'd probably start foraging for my own food. But I'm not Joshua Parker. He's the owner of a wholesale store on Gustavus, an island of about 450 people. And his shop is the island's only grocer. So every week during the pandemic, he has made the 14-hour trek to the Alaskan capital of Juneau to stock up on food and essential supplies for his fellow residents. It's a daunting trip and one that's often hindered by storms, but Parker hardly sweats it. The town needed to be supplied with groceries. Everyone else take a good yawn. The town needed to be supplied with groceries, so we just did whatever it took to make that happen. Just another day in our world. We'll never take another grocery run for granted. And so good for him going the extra mile to make sure that his town has groceries. And this is a crazy time. It's good to hear the good news. And it's amazing to me how much good news there is and how much good people are doing. And I just want to say that I think part of the good that you can do is a simple thing. Wear a mask when you go in public. It's as simple as that. If you're in public, wear a mask. And so it baffles my mind that people are not wearing a mask and that they think they're doing something brave and amazing when they don't. And they're like, I'm making my own political statement, but how about you make a statement for life? How about you make a statement to protect others besides yourself. Just wear a mask. I'm amazed. This country amazes me. We do have a lot of good that happens in this country, but I'm amazed at the bad that happens as well, and the things that people do. But I'm thankful that the good always seems to outweigh the bad. I do believe that. Anyway, sorry. I promise not to get on my soapbox again. But today, let's get back to our woman of the day. Today, our woman of the day is Frida Kahlo. She was a trailblazing Mexican painter and a feminist hero. Frida's German Jewish father, Guillermo, and her Mexican mother, Matilde, were loving parents who wanted their 4 daughters to follow their dreams. The family all lived together in the Casa Azul, or Blue House, in Mexico City, where Frida was born in 1907 and lived for most of her life. When Frida was 6, she got polio and had to stay in bed for nearly a year. Afterwards, she walked with a limp, but her father encouraged her to play football, swim, and wrestle to help strengthen her body. These sports were unusual for girls at the time, but they helped to make Frida fit and confident. She was clever and one of the few girls at her high school. She was loved by her friends for being warm, jolly, and stylish. She liked wearing traditional Mexican clothes and jewelry. One day when Frida was 18, she was traveling on a bus that crashed into a tram, killing several people. And a metal handrail smashed right through Frida's body, and she nearly died. Frida was in the hospital for many weeks and was changed by the accident. She still liked to joke, but she was often in pain, and being stuck in bed for months while she recovered left her bored and sad. So during that time, she decided to start painting, and her father helped her hang a mirror over her bed so she could paint a portrait of herself lying down. She began painting all the time, and when she was well enough to see people again, she met and fell in love with famous Mexican artist Diego Rivera. Frida called Diego, who was very big and not very handsome, Sapo, which means toad in Spanish. Although they loved each other deeply and were soon married, they often argued and spent a lot of time apart, living in separate houses joined by a walkway. Frida wanted a baby very much, but because of her injuries from the crash, she couldn't have one. Many of her paintings were inspired by her sadness about that. Frida loved animals, and she had many pets that brightened her life. And Diego became jealous that Frida and her paintings were becoming so famous. She was invited to even show her artwork in New York and Paris. They divorced in 1939, but then got married again the next year. Like her husband Frida was a communist, believing that workers and other poor people deserved a better life. She was a close friend of the Russian revolutionary Leon Trotsky. Unlike Diego, whose art was often about politics, Frida's artwork was more personal, although she painted about peace. Of her 143 paintings, 55 were self-portraits. She often painted herself as harsh and unattractive, with heavy eyebrows and a mustache. As Frida grew in fame and popularity, her health grew worse and worse. She had over 30 operations in her life to help correct the problems from her accident, and she lived in constant pain. After a battle with pneumonia, she died at the early age of 47. Frida has become known and loved all over the world for her unique artwork and her paintings, which still draw huge crowds. Frida herself has become even more popular than her paintings for proving that women can do anything they want to do despite obstacles. She is admired for her creativity, her bravery, and for following her heart. And there she is. And if you can see, wait, let me see. There's her and her husband. Some of her quotes, feet. What do I need you for when I have wings to fly? I paint myself because I'm so often alone and because I am the subject I know best. I am not sick, I am not broken, but I am happy to be alive as long as I can paint. And so, my friends, there is our woman of the day. Tomorrow will be the famous writer Beatrix Potter, who is the author and illustrator who created Peter Rabbit. And so, that's one of my favorite stories as a child. And so I do hope everyone is doing okay during these times. I so enjoy these videos, as I have said. And so Let's get right into it and listen to a little bit more of Hunger Games, shall we? All right. And so we'll probably not read the whole chapter, but we will continue on. So as we know, Katniss and Peeta are on that train or heading to the capital because they are heading to the Hunger Games. So let's continue on with the Hunger Games. For a few moments, Peeta and I take in the scene of our mentor, Haymitch, trying to rise out of the slippery, vile stuff from his stomach. The reek of vomit and raw spirits almost brings my dinner up. We exchange a glance. Obviously, Haymitch isn't much, but Effie Trinket is right about one thing. Once we're in the arena, he's all we've got. As if by some unspoken agreement, Peeta and I each take one of Haymitch's arms and help him to his feet. I tripped, Haymitch asked. Smells bad. He wipes his hand on his nose, smearing his face with vomit. Let's get you back to your room. Clean you up a bit. We half lead, half carry Haymitch back to his compartment since we can't exactly set him down on the embroidered bedspread. We haul him into the bathtub and turn the shower on him. He hardly notices. It's okay, Peeta says to me. I'll take it from here. I can't help feeling a little grateful since the last thing I want to do is strip down Haymitch, wash the vomit out of his chest hair, and tuck him into bed. Possibly Peeta is trying to make a good impression on him to be his favorite once the games begin. But judging by the state he's in, Haymitch will have no memory of this tomorrow. All right, I say, I can send one of the capital people to help me. Help you. If there's any number on the train, cooking for us, waiting on us, guarding us, taking care of us is their job. No, I don't want them, says Peeta. I nod. Sorry. I understand how Peeta feels. I can't stand the side of the capital people myself, but making them deal with Haymitch might be a small form of revenge. So I'm pondering the reason why he insists on taking care of Haymitch, and all of a sudden I think it's because he's being kind, just as he was kind to give me the bread. The idea pulls me up short. A kind Peeta Malark is far more dangerous to me than an unkind one. Kind people have a way of working their way inside me and rooting there, and I can't let Peeta do this, not where we're going. So I decide from this moment on to have as little as possible do with the baker's son. When I get back to my room, the train is pausing at a platform to refuel. I quickly open the window, toss the cookies Peeta's father gave me out of the train, and slam the glass shut. No more of either of them. Unfortunately, the packet of cookies hits the ground and bursts open in a patch of dandelions by the track. I only see the image for a moment because the train is off again, but it's enough to remind me of that other dandelion in the schoolyard years ago. I had just turned away from Peeta Malark's bruised face when I saw the dandelion, and I knew hope wasn't lost. I plucked it carefully and hurried home. I grabbed a bucket in Prem's hand and headed to the meadow, and yes, it was dotted with golden-headed weeds. After we harvested those, we scrounged along inside the fence for probably a mile until we filled the bucket with the dandelion green stems and flowers. That's right. That night, we gorged ourselves on dandelion salad and the rest of the bakery bread. What else, Prem asked me. What other food can we find? All kinds of things, I promised her. I just have to remember them. My mother had a book she brought with her from the apothecary's shop. The pages were made of old parchment and covered in ink drawings of plants. Neat handwritten blocks told their names, where to gather them, when they came in bloom, their medical uses. But my father added other entries to the book. Plants for eating, not healing. Dandelions, pokeweed, wild onions, pines. Prem and I spent the rest of the night poring over those pages. The next day we were off school. For a while I hung around the edges of the meadow, but finally I worked up the courage to go under the fence. It was the first time I'd been there alone, without my father's weapons to protect me. But I retrieved the small bow and arrows he made me from a hollow tree. I probably didn't go more than 20 yards into the woods that day. Most of the time I perched up in the branches of an old oak, hoping for game to come by. After several hours, I had the good luck to kill a rabbit. I shot a few rabbits before with my father's guidance, but this I'd done on my own. We hadn't had meat in months. The sight of the rabbit seemed to stir something in my mother. She roused herself, skinned the carcass, and made a stew with the meat. Some more greens Prem had gathered. Then she acted confused and went back to bed, but when the stew was done, we made her eat a bowl. The woods became our savior, and each day I went a bit farther into its arms. It was slow going at first, but I was determined to feed us. I stole eggs from nests, caught fish in nets, sometimes managed to shoot a squirrel or rabbit for stew, and gathered the various plants that sprung up beneath my feet. Plants are tricky. Many are edible, but one false mouthful and you're dead. I checked and double-checked the plants I harvested with my father's pictures. I kept us alive. Any sign of danger, a distant howl, the inexplicable break of a branch, sent me flying back to the fence at first. But then I began risk climbing trees to escape the wild dogs that quickly got bored and moved on. Bears and cats lived deeper in, perhaps disliking the sooty reek of our district. On May 8th, I went to the Justice Building, signed up for my tessera, and pulled home my first batch of grain and oil in Prem's toy wagon. On the 8th of every month, I was entitled to do the same. I couldn't stop hunting and gathering, of course. The grain was not enough to live on, and there were other things to buy, soap and milk and thread. What we didn't absolutely have to eat, I began to trade at the Hob. It was frightening to enter that place without my father at my side, but people had respected him and they accepted me. Game was game after all, no matter who'd shot it. I also sold at the back doors of the wealthier clients in towns, trying to remember what my father had told me and learning a few new tricks as well. The butcher would buy my rabbits but not squirrels. The baker enjoyed squirrel but would only trade for one if his wife wasn't around. The head peacekeeper loved wild turkey. The mayor had a passion for strawberries. In late summer, I was washing up in a pond when I noticed the plants growing around me, tall with leaves like arrowheads, blossoms with 3 white petals. I knelt down in the water, my fingers digging into the soft mud, and I pulled up handfuls of the roots, small bluish tubers that don't look like much, but boiled or baked are as good as any potato. Katniss, I said aloud. It's the plant I was named for, and I heard my father's voice joking. As long as you can find yourself, you'll never starve. I spent hours stirring up the pond bed with my toes and a stick, gathering the tubers that floated to the top. That night we feasted on fish and Katniss roots until we were all, for the first time in months, full. Slowly my mother returned to us. She began to clean and cook and preserve some of the food I brought in for winter. People traded us or paid money for her medical remedies. One day I even heard her singing. Prem was thrilled to have her back, but I kept watching, waiting for her to disappear on us again. I didn't trust her, and some small, gnarled place inside me hated her for her weakness, for her neglect, for the months she had put us through. Prem forgave her, but I had taken a step back from my mother, put up a wall to protect myself from needing her, and nothing was ever the same between us again. Now I was going to die without that ever being set right. I thought of how I yelled at her today in the Justice Building. I had told her I loved her too, though, so maybe it would all balance out. For a while I stand staring out the train window, wishing I could open it again, but unsure of what would happen at such high speed. In the distance I see the lights of another district. 7, 10? I don't know. I think about the people in their houses settling in for bed. I imagine my home with the shutters drawn tight. What are they doing now? My mother and Prem? Were they able to eat supper, the fish stew and the strawberries, or did it lie untouched on their plates? Did they watch the recap of the day's events on the battered old TV that sits on the table against the wall? Surely there were more tears. Is my mother holding up, being strong for Prem? Or has she already started to slip away, leaving the weight of the world on my sister's fragile shoulders? Prem will undoubtedly sleep with my mother tonight. The thought of that scruffy old buttercup posting himself on the bed to watch over Prem comforts me. If she cries, he will nose his way into her arms and curl up there until she calms down and falls asleep. I'm so glad I didn't drown him. And so that concludes today's reading of Hunger Games. So thank you for joining me today. I do hope you all have a good holiday, Memorial Day. And whatever you do, I hope you stay safe and you find joy. Much love to all of you, and bless you. God bless you, and just bless you.